At Kirtland Air Force Base, a new way of building satellites has been implemented. Congress ordered the Department of Defense to set up a department to find less expensive and faster ways of putting satellites into orbit. Hence, the Operationally Responsive Space Office was created. Its director, Dr. Peter Wegner, explains its mission.
It's really to develop space capabilities for the Department of Defense so that we can rapidly respond to critical needs for space capabilities. That's really the mission of the office. Our job is to look across the space enterprise, look for different business models, look at where technologies are going and try to take those technologies and rapidly incorporate them into space capabilities. It's really all about getting the power of space down into the hands of the warfighters, the Department of Defense, to satisfy the critical needs they have for space systems.
Satellites are now being made with components rather than being one-off pieces of technology. The parts and devices are being streamlined and can be assembled faster and combined more easily. Dr. Wegner compares it to a personal computer.
When Congress stood us up, they specifically told us they wanted us to look at business models that allow you to build space systems very fast and relatively inexpensively. When we set out to do that, we started looking at the technologies and where things were going, and we looked at the way personal computers are being built today and the kinds of plug-and-play technologies that we have in personal computers that allow you to take a pretty complex system and integrate it together very quickly and without a lot of expertise. You can put together a very complex system. We're using exactly the same kinds of technologies to build satellites. So you take all these very complex components and you essentially build a plug-and-play-like interface to it that allows you to integrate the satellite together very quickly. It cuts the cost down, it cuts down the design time and the design cost that goes with that as well.
The results so far are good. According to Dr. Wegner, a satellite that once took 10 to 15 years can now be produced in 2. What kind of satellites are they building? They're not called spy satellites. They're for situation awareness and communications. Part of the technology that goes into making these satellites is how that information is accessed on the ground.
It's not good enough just to launch a satellite and get it up there. You also have to work that part of the problem very hard, and we spend a lot of time on that, and we have done a lot of work and a lot of interaction with the community about how do you get this data down to these people that are deployed around the world in harm's way in a way that's very efficient, in a way that they can utilize. And there's a tremendous amount of innovation going on in that area. The Army is talking about giving soldiers access to iPhones and Android phones to get access to information very timely. Those are very innovative ideas that we'll be pushing on as we think about how do we get our data down to help support those people as well.
The satellites work similar to a program like Google Maps. As well as mapping terrain, it can also detect materials on the ground.
TACSAT-3 had a hyperspectral sensor on board that would allow you to look at signatures of materials and identify different materials. So it would allow you to say, here's a piece of metal, here's a piece of plastic, for example. So there are those capabilities out there, and TACSAT-3 is up on orbit today, doing a lot of those kind of experiments today.
As for the technology to prevent the satellites from being shot down or have their signals jammed from the ground, there is no comment on that. We also can only speculate as to what other feature these satellites might possess. One upcoming mission is to launch a satellite for situation awareness in Afghanistan.
This satellite will provide situational awareness of the area for operators in the Afghanistan region. It's a very important mission to us. We put a lot of the concepts and ideas about how to get technology or how to get this data down to these forward deployed personnel. And we're going to be instituting and implementing a lot of that, exercising a lot of those ideas on this satellite when it's going to launch in April of this next year, so in about 4 months.
Dr. Peter Wegner at Kirtland Air Force Base. I'm Rachel Kennedy for KSFR News.